My most interesting story is the time a friend of mine was arrested in China and put in jail, accused of being responsible for the deaths of 11 people who happened to be North Koreans who were visiting because of a hotel fire in Harbin in Manchuria. He was being held under house arrest, meaning he couldn't leave the town. They took his passport and everything. So then he contacted me, and I was on my way to China. And he said, would I represent him? And then I spent the next 6 months trying to get him out of jail. They decided that the rooms for these Korean guys were at the end of the hall, and his room was sort of in the middle. And they theorized that the fire started in his room and worked its way through the ductwork up into to the rooms on the end. So I actually was meeting with the chief judge, and so I said, well, now why did you conclude that the fire started in his room? And he said, well, because the depth of char on the vertical door frame was deeper in his room than the other rooms where there had been fire. And the fire expert that I had retained in England, he said, well, that's crazy because, of course, the depth of char is going to be deeper because the facts show that the window was open, so there was a draft in his room. So that doesn't mean the fire started there. That just means that, that it was more intense there at some point. There were a number of things like that, where there was a veneer of an objective analysis which wasn't really solid. And I said I wanted to bring in a fire expert from England to testify. And they said, no, Chinese experts are enough. And this was back in '85, it was pretty early in the process, and it was in a part of China which really was itself kind of still in the '50s. I mean, it was kind of scary. I mean, I was followed and my phone was tapped, but they must have been under tremendous pressure. I mean, to lose, this was a North Korean delegation. Everybody in North Korea is part of the government. This was a North Korean delegation, and to lose 11 North Koreans, China was in a bad way, and they needed somebody responsible for this. But because of the fact that they wouldn't allow an expert and a few other things, I was able to kick up a big fuss back here. I came home to get him, to work on getting him out. I got the vice president to raise it. I got the Secretary of Commerce to raise it, back and forth with the Chinese, and it was really a life-altering experience. It made me convinced that I had taken the right career path of avoiding trial law because it's very stressful. Eventually, on Thanksgiving Day, they let him out. So it started in May, and so May to November.